What if I told you Qatar built a $200 million stadium just to tear it down? This is Stadium 974, a bold experimental arena made from 974 shipping containers and steel. Sleek, colorful, set by the sea, it held over 40,000 fans and hosted 7 World Cup matches in 2022. Then it vanished. No demolition, no decay, just taken apart. But this wasn't a failure. It was the plan all along. Stadium 974 was designed to be temporary. Qatar built it with a promise. No white elephants, no abandoned arenas, just smart, reusable design. A stadium meant to be moved, reused, or recycled. It was supposed to be the future. At first, it seemed like a genius idea, a sustainable arena that could be dismantled. But now that it's gone, no one really knows what happened to it. Behind the eco-friendly image, Stadium 974 raised even bigger questions. Why spend so much on something temporary when so many countries struggle with permanent infrastructure? Was this true innovation or a clever PR stunt? In this video, we break down the full story of Stadium 974, from its bold construction to its quiet disappearance, and what it reveals about the future of mega events. Before we start, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss out on the truth behind the world's biggest events. When Qatar first announced plans for Stadium 974, it sounded like a perfect solution. The idea was simple, yet innovative. Build a World Cup stadium entirely from shipping containers that could be taken apart after the tournament. The number 974 wasn't random. It represented both Qatar's international dialing code and the exact number of containers used in construction. On paper, this modular design promised to solve football's biggest problem: the abandoned stadiums that often haunt host countries after major tournaments. At first glance, the concept made sense. The containers formed the stadium structure, stacked together like giant building blocks around a steel frame. When assembled, it looked impressive. A 40,000-seat arena with all the modern facilities expected for a World Cup venue, right on Doha's waterfront. But looking closer, some questions emerged. While marketed as sustainable, all 974 containers were actually brand new, rather than recycled. The construction still required massive amounts of energy and materials, and with a price tag around $200 million, it cost nearly as much as a permanent stadium would. Supporters argued the higher initial investment would pay off when the stadium was reused elsewhere. Critics wondered if this was truly practical, or more about creating a symbolic green project for Qatar's controversial World Cup. As construction finished in 2021, the world would soon see whether this experimental stadium could deliver on its promises when the tournament arrived. But first, it had to survive its biggest test, actually hosting World Cup matches. When the 2022 World Cup arrived, Stadium 974 finally got its chance to shine. Over just 19 days, the container stadium hosted 7 matches, including some memorable games that would become tournament highlights. The Brazil versus South Korea round of 16 match showed the arena at its best. Over 40,000 fans packed into the colorful stands, creating an electric atmosphere as Brazil's stars put on a show. The stadium's unique design made for great TV shots too. The container backdrop, the waterfront location, it gave it a distinctive look among Qatar's venues. But behind the scenes, cracks were showing in the perfect temporary stadium narrative. Despite its modular design, the arena still required massive energy use to keep players and fans cool in the desert heat. The air conditioning system reportedly consumed as much power as a small town during matches. Players gave mixed reviews. Some praised the pitch quality. Others noted the unusual acoustics created by the container structure. It felt different. You could hear shouts echoing in a strange way, one player anonymously commented after their match. Fans had their own observations. While many enjoyed the novelty, others called it the airport terminal stadium due to its industrial vibe. The promised quick entry and exit system sometimes struggled with crowds, leading to long lines at container-based concession stands. Most strikingly, the stadium's lifespan was incredibly short. From its first match on November 30th to its last on December 5th, Stadium 974 was only operational for 19 total days. For a $200 million project, this worked out to about $10.5 million per day of actual use during the tournament. As the final whistle blew on Portugal's 6-1 win over Switzerland on December 6th, the stadium's World Cup journey was already over. Little did fans know that when they walked out that night, they were among the last people who would ever set foot in the completed arena. The dismantling process would begin just weeks later, starting one of the most unusual post-tournament stories in World Cup history. Just weeks after the World Cup final, the dismantling of Stadium 974 began in earnest. What took years to build started coming apart in a matter of months. The process revealed both the strengths and limitations of Qatar's experimental design. Workers started by carefully removing the 40,000 seats, followed by the roof structure. Then came the painstaking process of detaching and cataloging each of the 974 shipping containers. Cranes lifted them away one by one, leaving behind an increasingly skeletal structure where a world-class stadium once stood. Qatar had promised these materials would find new life elsewhere. Officials suggested the containers might be shipped to developing countries needing affordable stadiums. But reality proved more complicated. While some components were repurposed locally, about 40% of the materials reportedly stayed in Qatar. The grand vision of global redistribution never fully materialized. By mid-2023, the site where Stadium 974 once stood was nearly empty. The striking waterfront arena had been reduced to concrete foundations and some leftover infrastructure. The speed of its disappearance was impressive, but it raised uncomfortable questions. Without clear evidence of the containers being reused as promised, critics began calling it the ultimate greenwashing project. The dismantling also revealed hidden costs. While saving on long-term maintenance, the teardown process itself required significant energy and resources. Some construction experts noted that building temporary structures often ends up being less sustainable than maintaining permanent ones, despite the appealing concept. Perhaps most telling was the silence from FIFA and Qatari officials. After initially celebrating Stadium 974 as a model for future tournaments, they grew quiet about its post-World Cup journey. No one really knows where all the materials went, and that made people question if the experiment was truly revolutionary or just an expensive publicity stunt. As the last containers were packed up, Stadium 974 left behind two competing legacies: an impressive engineering achievement that proved temporary megastadiums were possible, and a cautionary tale about the gap between sustainability promises and reality in mega event planning. The world would be watching to see if future hosts learned the right lessons from this bold but flawed experiment. When the last shipping container was hauled away from Stadium 974's vacant lot, it left behind a billion-dollar question for the sports world. Was this brilliant innovation, or just the most expensive magic trick in World Cup history? The numbers tell the real story. For $200 million, enough to build 40 standard stadiums in developing nations, Qatar got just 7 matches, spanning 19 electric days. That works out to $28.5 million per game, or nearly $80,000 for every minute of playtime during the tournament. While it avoided becoming another white elephant like Lusail Stadium, a $1 billion venue now sitting 90% empty, the environmental math proved equally shocking. The stadium's construction alone spewed 16,000 tons of CO2, equivalent to 3,200 cars circling the Earth. Despite its green marketing, only about 35 to 40% of materials found second lives, mostly in local Qatari projects, rather than the promised international aid. The energy spent cooling this temporary arena for its brief existence could have powered 800 homes for a year. As future hosts, like the 2026 North American organizers, take note, opting exclusively for existing stadiums, Stadium 974 stands as a paradoxical legacy. It proved disposable mega venues are possible, while exposing how sustainable claims often shatter under scrutiny. The true cost of innovation? About $10.5 million. For each day the world got to witness this experiment before it vanished into memory in shipping containers. Stadium 974 was built with one clear purpose: to disappear. It wasn't meant to stand the test of time, like other Grand World Cup arenas. Instead, it was crafted to leave no trace, vanishing after the tournament, and that's exactly what it did. In a world where many stadiums are abandoned and left to decay, Stadium 974 stands out for its temporary design. It didn't just fall apart, it was always meant to disappear, making a bold statement about sustainability and innovation in construction. It wasn't about creating something that would endure forever, but rather something that could be enjoyed in the moment and then disappear when it was no longer needed. And in its disappearance, it leaves behind more questions than answers. What if more buildings could be built with this in mind? What if we could rethink the very idea of sports venues and how they impact cities? Stadium 974 might be gone, but the conversation it sparked is just beginning. So when we think about the future of stadiums, is longevity the true measure of success? Or is it the ability to adapt, evolve, and even disappear when the world moves on? Like and subscribe if you're into bold ideas that challenge the norm.